Perfect. Hello, my name is Amanda Fest, and I will be introducing our language acquisition theory for me and Adana. And we were given social interactionism. So just before we begin, I did have some objectives and standards to kind of cover. So I have two objectives. One is for specifically the teacher, and one is more student friendly. So the first one I have is students will demonstrate their understanding of how communication supports language development through engagement in interactive speaking tasks, asking clarifying questions, and providing feedback to peers. The student-friendly one is students will participate in group discussion, ask at least one clarifying question, and summarize what their partner shared. And I have two standards from the AZELP page for 6th through 8th graders. The first one is standard 4, and it is construct grade appropriate oral and written claims and support them with reasoning and evidence. The second one is standard 6, and it is participate in grade appropriate oral and written exchanges of information, ideas, and analyses, responding to peer audience or reader comments and questions. Both of these are kind of the same, but I just wanted to have both because one is a little bit more in depth. And they both align with the activity that Adana will be explaining. Okay, so just for a little bit of background, this is just for your knowledge, not for the students. I have the social interactionism theory explores how an individual's acquisition and growth in a language develops through interactions with the others. And this is assuming that the individual's environments are beneficial to the individual's language acquisition. So like the best possible just kind of situation. And this is usually achieved through an individual of higher knowledge, like peers or family members or teachers. Um, so basically, we learn best when we communicate and converse with others. And this theory also explores how two common terms in education, which is the zone of proximal development and scaffolding. So according to Vygotsky, the ZPD is what we can achieve with help. And this is the most sensitive area for learning because it expands throughout our lives and leads to development of skills that we can use independently. As for scaffolding, it is a technique used to provide just enough support to guide individuals with tasks they cannot yet perform individually, but the supports are gradually withdrawn. And both are used to guide learning for language, well, learning in general, but specifically with languages, because as we learn, we are given so many supports to start out with, but the more that we engage in the language and the more that we learn about it, the less support that we need because we develop those long-term independent skills. So that's basically social interactionism theory. And this kind of goes for the lesson that Adana will be explaining more in depth. But if you wanted to introduce this to your students at the very beginning of your lesson, so like assuming that this is where the lesson starts, I have a very student-friendly way of explaining it. And I think that with students who aren't necessarily fully fluent in English, it is best to introduce this topic through discussion. That was scary. And you can do this by posing questions to kind of get the conversation going. And I have a couple, so you can introduce it and kind of engage with students by asking when you were little, like, how did you learn how to talk? Who was the best at encouraging you to speak? Or think about a time when you learned a new word or phrase from someone else. This engages the students and it allows them to reflect on their past experiences and it connects the theory to, it connects them to their life. So it's easier to internalize and understand the definition. And you can say, like, often we learn new words when we hear our friends and family using them. This is social learning. And I have just a part two on this. And if you wanted to give them an actual definition, I have social interactionism is the idea that we learn and grow by talking and working with other people. And yeah, it's very, very important to highlight key concepts, such as we learn language and ideas by interacting with others. Talking with teachers, friends, and family helps us understand the world and the languages better. And we learn from each other. And I think the most important is everyone's voice matters because in ELL classes, you might have a lot of diversity where students come from different cultures, or even within the same culture, there are there are different experiences. So it's very important to teach that everybody's voice does matter and their experiences matter as well, especially in um, this kind of area. And then just for the last thing I have with introducing this topic, I have a role play scenario where if you just want to take the extra step to further your students' understanding, you can act this out yourself or you can have the students act it out, hence role play. But I just have a conversation between two students and one of them is learning a new word. Um, kind of acting out the theory that we learn through others. So I have two friends or students, Jordan and Alex. And Jordan says, my favorite dish is pad thai. It's so savory and has a rich, salty flavor that makes your mouth water. Alex then asks, savory? I've heard that word before, but I don't know what it means. Jordan elaborates, it's kind of the opposite of sweet. When something tastes salty or spicy, but not sugary, that's savory. So then Alex says, oh, so like pizza or grilled chicken? Exactly, those are savory foods. And then Alex, learning this word through his friends, says, got it. I think my favorite savory food is nachos. And if you have the students act this out with each other, it kind of sets them up for the activity that comes after, which I will now hand to Adana to explain that activity. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Adana Funk, and for my part of the presentation, I'll be explaining our activity called peer interviews. This activity is designed to help students build their speaking, listening, writing, and comprehension skills while also encouraging social interaction. Students will pair up and interview one another and then regroup as a class to share what they've learned. During the interviews, they'll take notes so they can write a short reflection about the experience. One of the biggest things about this activity, I think, is it's simple and flexible. It works with all grade levels and requires only pencil and paper or whiteboards, whatever materials you'd like to use. Because it's a group-based activity, it helps students feel more comfortable, especially English learners who might feel nervous speaking in front of others. The teacher stays closed off to offer support or clarification whenever needed. Here's an example of a handout that you could give front and back of word banks to help them, whether it's questions or answers, and then the columns of questions and answers for their partners. These are some example sentences that you can ask during the interviews. Teachers can encourage students to ask open-ended questions that lead to their conversations, such as, what do you like to do in your free time? What's your favorite subject in school? What's one thing you're really good at? Do you have any goals for this year? Do you have a favorite sport? What's one tradition your family has? These questions are simple but meaningful. They allow students to share their interests, values, and experiences and allow other students to understand and learn through their peers. This slide, we see examples of how students might respond to these questions. For example, if I asked, what do you like to do after school? A student might say, after school, I like to play basketball, or I like to hang out with my friends after school. If I asked, what's your favorite hobby? A student could respond, my favorite hobby is drawing because it helps me relax. These models teach students how to answer questions in complete sentences using natural patterns like subject, word, object. Teachers can do short demonstration conversations to show what active listening looks and sounds like. This helps students build confidence and understand how to keep conversations going, not just give those short, simple, one, two-worded answers. By using these examples, students are learning grammar and fluency in real-world context. Now, this slide explains how to run the activity in the classroom. The teacher can begin by saying something like, okay, to class, today we're going to interview your partner. You can ask them about their favorite food, hobby, music, or memory. Remember to ask some follow-up questions to keep the conversation going for as long as possible. The follow-up questions are essential. They show students how to listen actively and respond naturally. Some of these examples could include, what made you pick that? Or could you tell me more about that? I don't know what that is. Can you explain it or describe it to me? Students will then take turns interviewing and being interviewed while taking notes as they go. After a few minutes, they will switch roles. At the end, each partner introduces their partner to the class and shares the questions and answers that they received. This not only builds fluency, but also confidence, listening skills, and social awareness. I believe that having the students explain their partner's answers allows students to be more willing to raise their hand and answer because you're answering for someone else and not for yourself, because sometimes expressing how you feel or think can be scary in a classroom setting. So allowing students to tell other students likes, hobbies, favorite musics, those kinds of things might have this activity being more open and throughout the classroom. After everyone has finished their interviews, a teacher will regroup the class for a full discussion. Students will share what they learned about their partners, giving them a chance to speak in front of the group and practice public communication. Then they'll write a short reflection in their notebooks, and they can talk about what they learned, what surprised them, or how it felt to communicate in English. This reflection helps students process what they experienced and lets the teacher check for understanding and engagement. It also reinforces the idea that language learning helps through interaction, not just worksheets or memorization. And what did we learn? Our recap. From our main takeaways from today, the teacher could end up saying, today we learned how language develops through social connections with our friends, families, and classmates. The teacher can remind students that conversation and collaboration are at the heart of the social interactionism theory. Man, is that a tongueful? That basically we learn best through the means of communication. By reflecting and sharing, students have demonstrated this theory in action. And finally, the teacher can open up the floor to any questions or comments. This lets students express their final thoughts and end the activity in an exclusive and reflective note. If there's any need for extra discussion outside of the notebook writing and all those kinds of things, it's just basically how your class needs to regroup and finish and finalize that activity. It might differ from kindergarten compared to a sixth grade classroom. This activity is very extendable through all grade levels. But
Okay, I'm gonna skip past the examples and okay, okay, I'll start off with the discussion. The second phase of the activity for today is the class discussion, and it's going to be followed by an independent reflection. So after the activity is over, the teacher will regroup the students into a class discussion where they can volunteer to introduce their partners. And this can be like really simple, very low stakes. You can be like, okay, everyone, time is up. Who wants to share um, what the partner shared? And then you have a couple people say, okay, that was very nice. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share? If nobody else shares, then we can move on. The next step is that the students will be asked to write a short reflection in their notes, and you can have them write regarding what they learned through the activity, what they learned about their peers, how they connect this theory to their personal lives and the activity itself, or if they have any lingering questions and or confusion. The last part of this activity is just a recap. So the teacher can end the day by reiterating the main concepts of the lessons. So basically, social interactionism. We learn best when we converse with others, and we learn best through conversation. And that is how our language, vocabulary, and fluency grows. And let's see, you can also reiterate communication is very important. Collaboration is also the foundation of this learning theory, and that you can make really meaningful interactions um, through these connections that you make with others. And then if there's time, you can say, okay, does anybody have any questions to ask? Is anyone confused? Or is there anything that anybody would like to share that they didn't have time to? And that's basically it. That's the activity. Thank you so much for watching along, and I hope that you learned what social interactionism is, and hopefully this was a good activity that you might want to implement or recreate. Thank you.